So I think that perhaps that we need to show that we have facts and that we can back up the facts. So I don't know how we
I
go
know
about
that too.
doing that, but I think we should. Yep. I hate to see people misled.
I'll share, I spoke with a couple members of an organization that I will not name, but they were looking into state standards and what Prenda and Kai both claim as far as their abilities to meet those standards, and they were going to dig into the law for us.
Wonderful. And also the fact that it has been quoted that our scores were down, and I heard from a teacher just this past week that our scores had gone up.
Yes, and I think that was shared at our last meeting, that actually Croydon Village School scores had gone up. So that's a good point.
So I wonder if maybe Frank or anybody else who knows, I would think we have some legal obligation for materials that are handed out that influence vote to be accurate. So does the SAU office have any input to what is stated on pages like this?
The only thing that I can speak to is that the school district is not allowed to campaign. So our obligation is to answer questions as factually as we can when we're asked. So we don't campaign. So for example, the board creates the budget or the articles that went to the school district meeting, and they approve those articles. The most they can really do until that meeting is to write that the board recommends passage or the board does not recommend passage. And I think you'll see in the last one, the board recommended passage of the budget. But that's really kind of all we can do. We're not allowed to engage, because we're public, we represent everybody. We're not allowed to engage in campaigning.
Did that answer your question?
I understand the answer to the question. I would like to think that there is some way for this to be confirmed, factual or not. And I don't know how we get that info in an efficient and timely way.
Do we know where this came from? Yes, I asked him from last week to present the 4 options they were talking about last week, because the figures were flying left and right, and everybody was having a difficult time staying on track with this program, that program, and so forth. So I had asked him to produce this information from last week.
Him being Aaron?
Yes.
Okay,
Aaron.
thank you.
Yes, sorry. And he didn't have it ready this evening, but he went and printed it off. So my understanding is this sheet that has the budget on it is what they're proposing this evening. So this right here is, I guess, yeah, so this was just more informational.
But that's the budget from.
This is the new budget based on the 800.
It's got both. Are there more copies of that?
No, or not. Well, I have a.
No, that's not it.
Oh, I only have.
Wait, what? I said it's not it.
Here's one. Then a copy of the.
Here, I can get another one. Pass those to her. I can get another one. You can have mine.
That way, right?
All right, thank you. Oh, look at that.
Yes, I just want to say I just feel at a place for the start of the meeting. Plenty of space, can't constantly post it tonight.
There we go. I'm sure that with enough people, we'll throw off the BTUs to warm it up.
Maybe porta potties, depends on if the weather cooperates and the guys can get all the water turned on, because everything is unhooked.
Okay, so special meeting on May 6th.
Just double check the RSA about that.
Double check what?
There's something about the location has to be within a certain vicinity of things, so just double check the RSA.
I found an RSA that supports we could hold it outside of the district if we didn't have a place big enough within the district to hold it, so.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, double
So I
check.
was
so we
hoping
might
to
not
not have to do that, so this is,
Yeah.
okay, excellent, Kim Monson, meeting six.
Thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you. Right, people be that, they probably left.
Somebody just said, I already went to explain to them what's going on right now, so they know that it's part of the.
I'm just looking at the budget, so.
All right, we have one more person.
So was there, we had originally talked about, maybe helping people get to the meeting that couldn't, are we still doing anything like that? We haven't-
So we had originally talked about, kind of jokingly talked about getting a school bus or something so we could, transport people to the meeting, but, I mean, I don't know technically we can do that, but, both of my kids have their licenses, so, we could get a small group of people together, I think, to give rides if we need to.
I was just thinking, of the roads, like, cause I know it's muddy,
Yeah.
there, I don't know.
I got 8 seats, 4-wheel drive out.
All right.
And the thing is, you can give people rides as long as you don't tell them how to vote. So I think when we publicize it, letting people know that we need everyone out,
Yeah.
say, and I don't know if you want to say, here's a number to call or whatever, and we can give a list
Right.
that someone will provide you a ride to, so that you can vote that day. And then if we had one with central list, we could figure out who lives near who
Right.
and just get the ride.
That's a good idea.
Or would it make more sense to say park at the fire department and at this time there'll be people there to pick you
Oh,
up?
to shuttle people.
Oh, that's a great idea.
idea.
That's a really good idea.
There may be some people that are listening.
I was gonna say, I could probably get someone in our office and use our phone number for people to call, to kind of use our office as a place to go in and out.
Lynn, did you hear that?
I missed that.
So Jason said they could probably get somebody, in their office to field those calls and make a list of people.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to order at 7:50 p.m.
Okay.
Lorraine, you found a spot for the special town meeting.
Zoom or sorry, Google Meet is that?
Okay. So, at this point, are we just making a motion, and then we'll explain what we're doing?
I think we still have to.
Sorry.
I have to move to resume. call to order again. Yep. So no decisions to be made at this time, on staffing obviously or contracts and whatnot.
Right.
But we did have a discussion to see what some of the options are. So I guess now, I think the next item on the agenda would be to talk about the budget that's due at the end of the week, right? The 800,000. So, there's a few different ways that we could go at it. And I know there's a few pieces of paper circulating around. The one that has the 4 options, that was the one that I really wanted to distribute to people, because I know that's what folks were asking for. It's not an exhaustive list, it just happens to be the 4 that seem to have the most merit at the, it's 3 options there, and they're compared to the original budget. These ones have the most merit of all the things that we've talked about, and we could go into that in greater detail if you like. But for right now, I think we all agree that we need to get something on paper for DRA that ties out to the $800,000 number. There's a couple different ways we could do that. We could try to get cute and guess at what we may or may not do in next year. So one of the papers that's floating around has $1 line items and whatnot. Which, thank you, Angie, for that idea. The other way we could go at it is to just keep it simple and do like whatever the percentage is, 53, 54%, cut just down the line, just to have a budget submitted. And then we would still have flexibility, of course, during the year to actually move things around and spend as see fit. And of course, all of this is going to be entirely dependent on what happens at the district meeting. So I don't know if you guys have opinions. I'm sort of leaning towards just keeping it simple.
I would move to just direct Beth to cut every line item by 54% so that we can meet the $800,000 for now. Everything is preserved, and after the district meeting, we can, if we're still stuck with 800,000 at that point, then we really are not.
I'll second
what we
that.
have to.
And Beth, that makes sense to you?
And that's not what we're looking at though here.
Correct.
No.
Okay.
No.
Those were just putting pen to paper and trying to develop theoretical ideas.
Okay.
Yeah, I got the wrong one printed when I first showed up, and then I realized it, so I tried to scramble and get this one done. This is the one I wanted you to really have, that has a different options. The other one is just one way we could have sliced the $800,000 budget, but yeah, as we just said, it's probably just easier to make it a flat cut, and then we work out, we cross the bridge later, depending on what comes of the district meeting.
So it's moved and seconded.
Any other discussion then?
I'm okay with it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so,
I don't know that we had much else on the agenda, right? I mean, we could talk about some of these quickly if we wanted. I think we've talked about them in the past, but.
no, I mean, we go to public forum then, are we ready for that?
Yeah. Did you have anything else on?
I wanted to talk about our approach to receiving schools, but I think we've decided to postpone it,
Okay.
right? Or do you want to talk about, sending a letter, talking about the possibility, having a discussion, but saying it'll be after the district meeting? I mean, that might be an interesting way to go. Just a letter saying where we stand?
Yeah, I mean, we should get a letter.
Current standing is we haven't been given a budget that supports us continuing the contract as it was written, so that contract would not be supportable.
Exactly, but I think we should send a letter.
And
particularly,
we should have that conversation with,
right now that
each
this
of our
district meeting
receiving
is
schools.
much later than we were originally thinking
Yep.
too, it probably makes a lot more sense to just reach out to them, get
Have
something on the
that
books.
communication open.
So, I would think we'd send a letter of some sort to just make that official.
To all our receiving
Right.
schools, yeah. Do you want to draft that?
I can do that.
So does that mean that you haven't reached out to any of our receiving schools?
Not officially.
We have not. The only one that I would call into was the technical school, over in Newport, with the welding program and whatnot. I just wanted to feel them out on, do students have to go through Newport to go to that school? And they expressed to me that you don't, we could enroll directly, and that they would work with us to the best of their ability to make sure the kids that are there now get to stay there. But that's the extent of any conversation that at least I've had with any of the schools.
Okay. You haven't had any conversations?
I spoke with Christy Whipple from Rutland, so.
You didn't speak out to any public school, whatsoever, no public school, on anything.
Not yet.
Not yet, you should have before this meeting,
What's it about?
before the other town meetings.
So, thank you for your,
Yeah.
for your comment.
All right, so we'll get a letter. I've already drafted one anyways that I think could work, so I'll get that circulated.
So Jody, in speaking to Christy, was she willing to negotiate tuition?
No.
And I don't think any of us expected that she would, and she's already
Pretty low.
pretty low. I mean, she's charging a very fair market rate right now, so.
Okay. I know that, Newport, we were on their agenda last week. And one of their board members shared some unfavorable information about the Croydon School District, and then it was cut short, so I don't know if somebody asked to please do that in non-public, or what happened, honestly, with it, so. Just that, you know, it's not so long ago, the same thing happened where we couldn't pay our bills to them.
Yeah, I heard that as well. It was definitely brought up.
It wasn't a favorable conversation.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna do that. So, I mean, I'm really not quite ready for public forum.
Oh,
Let's
sorry.
go find out that we have anything else. I think it's all I had on my agenda. Alright, so ready for public comment? Okay. Public comment.
So, I have a question, you are the chair, right? I mean, you've been on the board the longest. I would just like to know, what is your main objective of being on the school board right now? Is it the education of our children? Or is it paying very low taxes or no taxes? Out of those two, what is more of your priority?
So I heard 3 choices there.
No, it's paying taxes or low taxes. Taxes.
Lower no taxes.
Our taxes or our
education.
children's education.
Children's education is
Your
the highest
priority
priority.
from being on the school.
I just answered, did you hear me?
No, I didn't.
I said my highest priority is educating children.
Our children? The town of Croydon
Yes.
children?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you truly believe that Brenda is the best education for these kids?
I think choice is the best education.
Okay. So if you believe in Brenda, because that is your choice, obviously, why is it that you presented a $1.7 million budget at the school board meeting? Why didn't you mention Brenda then?
I didn't think of it.
Jody, honestly, I mean, it's obvious that you do not have the best interests of our children in mind, and I would like to formally ask you to step down from your position.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else?
I'll add.
So, I mean, you said that choice, you know, best option for students, but I feel like slashing the budget as much as we did, now we've only provided choice for rich families who can afford to come up with a difference of what we're willing to pay or what that budget provides. But sorry, not just my statement. My question is, we only had choice as a district because we don't offer grades 5 through 12. If we come up with this private option, aren't we then offering grades 5 through 12? And doesn't that take away our choice? I mean, so in other words, we only got to choose to send kids because we don't have any options. If we say that this is an option, and this is the option we're providing, then we're now providing an option. Does that take away our choice? I just had a question about that.
So, yeah, I mean, we've asked about that, and I don't, it doesn't take away our choice.
How so, though? I mean, who told you that information, and how does it not? Because then we're providing an option.
Legal advice, just different people. So, you know, I want to add to the choice thing. I think individualized instruction is also one of those things that I value. So I'm going to add that to the choice part. But the micro schools, what they do is, I mean, they actually provide choice within there. There are a lot of curricular and online schools that they use, and the idea is to choose one that suits each kid, right? So it's not just one.
But my question is, you can definitively say right now that if we go with these models of these pod learning, that we will still be able to have school choice.
We will be able to have school choice.
But at a price.
No question in the back?
Well, if I could add to that, I mean, obviously, the local schools, the choices are gonna depend on what the cost ends up being. But there's two different types of choice, and what we're talking about introducing is the ability to choose different types of curricula as well. So if you all you have are the local schools, granted they are different schools, but it largely follows one format. So some of these micro schools introduce a different layer of choice, which is, well, maybe I want to continue with the Montessori curriculum. And I didn't have an option to do that before, but now I do through this Pod. So two different dimensions, I think, to the choice conversation. But obviously, as far as the local brick and mortar schools, a lot of that's going to come down to how much they're willing to
how much each individual family can come up with the thing. So a family like with me who has 3 children, I got to come up with, you know, if it's
like 30 grand. Everybody's got that.
public choice.
Yeah. There's somebody in the back who had a question.
How individualized would K-4 instruction be? You guys have on those lines 100% individualized, unknown, and somewhat. Could somebody please tell me what somewhat means and who determines what that somewhat is? Because I don't know what somewhat means.
Or where it came from. Where somewhat came from.
What does somewhat mean? It's somewhat individualized. And how do we determine that? Who's determined that?
So with 100% individualized in, say, like a micro school option, each child is following a curricula that is perfectly lined up with exactly where they are. Their instructional time is matched exactly to where they fall, whether it's math or reading or whatever. Somewhat, trying to fit things into small cells, of course, but it's more the model where you have a teacher in front of a group of children. And we do a pretty good job of individualizing things at the village school, of course. But at the end of the day, it is still a classroom with a teacher, whereas micro school would be, there's individual time that the child is spending, and their spot inside of that progression is specific to them. And the actual instruction that they're given on any day of the week is exactly where they are in their own progression.
And will there be school counselors in this, the pod, so on and so forth, method? Is there school counseling? Is there, because some kids need to also learn certain things they may not be good at, right? So they may run into that individualized or not. So would there be counseling? Would there be, like, what would that be? Would that be a guide?
I mean, we don't have.
We can tailor all we want to everybody's strength. The fact of the matter is, there are certain things that I'm better at than other people are, and our kids are probably gonna have to learn that in the world too. So when they may run into something like that, will there be an avenue for that?
I mean, well, there's different aspects of they break the day up into different segments, and there's another part of the day where it's all team-based collaboration between children, working on projects. So you get the peer-to-peer, the socialization, dealing with people at different levels and abilities, mirroring the real world. So, does this option currently have a spot for a dedicated counselor? No, and I don't think that we have one right now either.
Just asking. Thank you.
Hi, I have a question. The Prenda and the amounts, are we basing that on the state contract that New Hampshire has with Prenda?
They charge $5,000 per student,
Right.
and currently the state covers that cost.
Yes, so it's the current contract, which has been, I don't want to say renewed, but extended because of the need. Because in that contract, I printed that contract off, and it clearly states in the state contract with people using Prenda that because I believe it was the intention of it originally was to help children catch up and have different types of learning. So it states clearly in the contract that when parents, whoever feel that it's best for the child to be in a public school classroom, that you legally have to do that. So I'm wondering if you go with Prenda, how will you deal with parents who will show you that and say, it's your legal obligation to put my child in a public school classroom?
My understanding is that it could be exclusively using Prenda. There's no law that says that you can't.
I'm talking about this contract the state has, that the governor has signed, using Prenda in New Hampshire. I have it printed out, it's online.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's a question we gotta get answered from them.
I just, as I've said before, I foresee, I'm all for saving money, I foresee legal problems costing you more in the long run than you're saving by an exclusive education program.
Anytime you make a budget cut like this with no plan in place, there's gonna be legal problems.
I guess that's why I'm baffled why the board brought a budget to the table and then two of the members ultimately thought it wasn't rightful to defend the budget.
Right, and stayed silent. That was really in the children's best interest in the town.
Not making a choice is still making a choice. Not voting is still voting, realistically. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it, folks.
And so I'd like to return to Kim's motion and proposal and formally call for Jody to resign. You admitted to knowing before the meeting of your husband's proposal, yet you deliberately kept it from the public while sharing it with the select group. You've been underhanded and disingenuous. You're undeserving of our trust and the position you hold. That would leave you guys without a member. I volunteered to serve, and I know Angie Bolio's willingness to do so. Angie has ample experience working on the school board with difficult issues and has said that she would step in. I've attended meetings for years. I've shared what I see as my qualifications in the statement I publicized when I was running. Additionally, Ryan Ball, who's here also, is a newer resident. He's expressed his willingness to step in and serve on the school board. He's a purchasing manager at Remco and is therefore well-versed in dealing with large budgets. So Aaron and Kevin, you guys would have choices in considering a replacement appointment to fill Jody's seat should she do what's right and what this town, those gathered here, I think would agree is the right step. And so, again, I formally call for you to resign, Jody.
I would like to formally call it, perhaps we should consider moving this meeting to Salem, Massachusetts, as it's the birthplace of witch hunts everywhere. There is no basis, there is both, no basis, I am not.
Excuse me, he's speaking.
There is no basis for calling for her to resign. She has not broken the law. She has not done anything unethical. This is ridiculous. However, maybe she's tired of this crap. I'm speaking.
Let him talk.
Let him talk? Oh, public schools suck. Podcast. Oh, that's cool. Suck public schools, and whatever that podcast you're on.
All right, so Jim Pesci is speaking right now.
Yeah. We don't really. Well, then leave, because I have the floor. Okay? This bullying's got to stop. You are not the town. You are a part of the town. Stop talking like you're the whole town. She should not resign. She has done a fine job, and I disagree with her plenty.
Bollocks.
I will say that, well, that's your opinion. I'm speaking now. You can speak when it's your turn. If, for some reason, she chooses of her own free will, and I discourage it, to resign, I would like to point out that I am available for the school board.
May I lead the town in laughter? I'll lead the town in laughter before you get on the school board. It'll never happen again, I guarantee it, not here.
So the woman in the back is starting to speak.
I'm very interested, you have a position with a company in Maryland? Does that have ties with the school company? What is that? I'm very interested in the company that you're working on.
The company I work for,
In Maryland? Designing learning assessments?
that my professional job is to design digital environments for learning and assessment and simulations, things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with public schools.
Does this tie into this?
Sorry, I can't hear her.
Please
be respectful.
Does this tie into these learning modules that you're proposing?
No, it has no connection to it whatsoever.
Okay, and also I'm wondering, so I'm as a parent, my son epically failed with this pandemic online learning situation. It was awful. He did not succeed with it. He's doing much better in a physical environment. I'm wondering how many parents had the same experience? How many parents are there to monitor their child on an online learning environment? How many children should be on screen time for 3 hours?
Right, so that's not what these are, but understood.
Is this not important? I believe that this is very important.
90 minutes.
3 hours per day.
90 minutes for free.
Yeah?
90 minutes.
High school, it says screen time is typically around 3 hours per day. And that's exactly what it says, yeah, you are correct.
So, my children can't do that.
Where's the choice coming out?
So where is the choice?
And what parent stays home from work to watch these kids?
Individual education plans, right? Individual education plans. Who's supervising these individual education plans?
So there are multiple
Who's
questions
overseeing
in
that
there.
each child is getting an individual education plan? Who are we paying to oversee this? Do we have teachers?
All right, so I think there's a few questions in there. One was on the grades 5 through 12 micro school option. They do use online curriculums. They do average around 4 hours of screen time per day. That's the average. They're not at home. They're in person with other kids.
Where is that?
Location
That's not established.
Location to be determined, but they do put the children all together.
With these certified people educating our
They are,
children? Who
well,
are these
no,
people?
the teachers will be on the online program, and the person that's in the room with them is a coach that's there to provide enrichment activities.
So a coach that came from where? Who hired this coach?
That would be hired by KaiPod.
So they're not certified education professionals?
No, but they're not intended to be the instructor. The instructor is coming from whatever online program they're enrolled in.
So
for
we're
example,
sending our
they-
children to babysit?
So for example, they might be enrolled in the virtual Montessori school. So they would be receiving all their instruction through an instructor that's dedicated to them through that program. The KaiPod coach is somebody that's in the room facilitating the group activities and group enrichment.
So this person is is not certified in any manner, it is just a babysitter overseeing children online.
Sometimes they are certified, and, but again, they're not providing instruction.
Right. So what about, CPR, things like that, first aid, are they going to be certified in that? Yes.
My understanding is yes.
Your understanding?
Yes.
Because I would want to absolutely make sure that anyone supervising my children had certain safety
Yeah.
specifications.
Yeah, they are.
At one of the last meetings, it was brought up that the school board would need to seek legal counsel to find out if it was legal to base your tuition rate on an online learning platform. I'm just wondering if that was done and the outcome of that.
So, I mean, I think what we've confirmed is that we have to have an option that is free, no additional out-of-pocket expense for the family, for receiving their.
Right, but the only option would then be grades, for that model, would be grades K through 12 in your micro school. And if that's not the case, what is your tuition rate based on?
The tuition rate would be based on, what would be needed to guarantee the free option. So if it was, say, 9,000, then that would cover the micro school option. I'm sorry?
Is that what your lawyer said?
The lawyers, Joey, correct me if I'm wrong, but they said that.
The lawyer still has some research to do based on some of these questions. He hasn't fully answered all of those questions.
And is that a lawyer you've retained at the cost of the district?
That is the lawyer that we met with
Can you
last
tell us
night.
who you settled on?
What, his name was Nate, Nate Whitmire.
Because you confirmed about,
Nathan Midolo.
Say it again?
Nathan Midolo. At Upton and Hatfield. That's M-I-D-O-L-O.
Yeah, that's the department that, yeah. Question?
I would just like to know about the contract with Newport. So in that contract, it stated that we still had to pay half of our tuition. So are we seriously considering paying Newport for services that they can't give us?
So we're looking into the Newport contract, so
But you
that's.
haven't done that yet.
Well, we talked with the lawyer about it, and he's looking into what the contract has and what we can do with it.
Okay, so I'm just, my concern then becomes we're paying for services that we're not getting, even though it's the services that a lot of students want. And then we're gonna have to turn around and pay for this other school that you guys want, not the town. And then, we're gonna be paying for this lawyer that because of the decision that you guys made to keep quiet and not defend our budget. So now we have a lawyer that we have to pay for, so we're gonna have a lot of extra expenses because you guys chose to not speak up and defend the school budget that you required and asked of this town. So again, we asked Jody, please step down.
I mean,
You're doing a really bad job.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments and I understand your frustration.
Thank you for understanding.
You mentioned location to be determined by these bonds, and I know you came to see me about using the fire station. Afterwards, I gave it some thought, and I called the state fire marshal up to see what was required. Considering it's still a schooling that you are going to provide, so this kind of will leave the fire station out, sadly to say, we do not have a fire alarm system in our fire station. Yeah. It's old. I really am. However, any building that you do hold these pods in are gonna have to withstand the fire safety standards that any school has. Who's gonna pony up that money to upgrade any building? Because if you're closing the school over here, then it's closed, you're not using that.
Well, typically, if you don't have, at least for the higher grades, which is what we were talking about with the fire station, if you don't have a building already, that company would go out and find a building and secure a place.
Okay.
who's gonna pay for that?
That would have to be passed through to us. And we did put some money in the budget for rent.
Can I, where did we allocate that? Or you can say something if you'd like, ma'am. Just trying to keep things moving, because I do have something I want to
So
say.
if we haven't heard from, yeah, so that's
Jody, we had some records disclosed about communications that were going on during this time. And it looks like there might have been a Zoom meeting of some kind with the Commissioner of Education and possibly board members on Wednesday, the 23rd, before the meeting was scheduled to happen. And I was just hoping you could clarify what that meeting was about.
On the 23rd, can you see that?
I don't know anything about that.
That was last Wednesday.
We met with Nate Green from the Department of Ed. He's accountability for the Department of Ed.
We?
Who is we?
Aaron and I both did.
So did you post that meeting ahead of time?
So we didn't, but because we were getting information from them, that he and I weren't deliberating. It wasn't, so that was our understanding at that time. We have since learned that what this is frowned upon, but
No, it's not frowned upon.
according to 91A, that's right. At any time you get together to do that. No, we didn't realize that was the case.
You stated during other meetings that we've been having.
That we couldn't deliberate if we got together. That's what I stated.
No.
That we couldn't deliberate. I said it that way.
You can't discuss.
All right, so your memory is different from mine. There.
You might not be posting minutes, but people are video recording all those things you say.
Exactly.
Good, so look it up, because I did say that it was deliberation.
We'll look it up.
But it says a meeting, the convening of the quorum, majority of any public body to discuss or act on any of that body's business. So you were together discussing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So this was a violation of the law.
And we did not know that. That's right.
Well, just, I mean, ignorance.
Kevin, you can ask Kevin.
Oh.
Kevin knows what that about it.
How do you feel about them having a meeting without you present?
Were you invited?
I didn't know anything about it. I'm learning about it.
So,
We shared information with you on it, though, I'm pretty sure.
hold on, guys. I want to hear this.
Okay, can I speak now? Sorry.
Sorry, Angie.
Okay, so, the person who asked about the counseling services, I'm not sure who that is, okay. It is their goal, so they do not believe, they consider that a medical cost. And they feel that counseling, the board. I'm sorry, I would take you out of this, but I know that Jody, Aaron, I really honestly don't know your view on it, but I know Jody's, and I know Jim Peschke's as well. But they feel that parents should be responsible for the counseling of their children, okay? So, no, they don't have a counselor built into this. We have guidance counselors built into the school, as we know, to protect the kids. Their plan is that if your kid has an issue, as a parent, you deal with it. That's how they feel about it. But what I do, more importantly, which is just, it blows me away. So Prenda is responsible for their own facility, is that correct? Like getting the facility and securing it and?
No.
No? Okay.
No, it would be Croydon NH School.
So who would still own that building?
The town owns it.
Okay. So in here, it says that Prenda relies on its learning guides to secure the physical space in which to operate their school, okay? As part of securing that space, it has in here that
must be locked and secure. Why would it have in here, under their facilities requirements?
I think that's on the off chance that somebody volunteers there.
It does it in their home, correct? Okay, so who's to say that whoever it is that's there as a guide, you know, I mean,
No, so,
the whole thing is, if you don't operate that under a public school system, then you don't have to abide by the New Hampshire laws, right? I mean, I could open up a place in my house and have a whole arsenal of weapons, right? So if you're not gonna operate that as a public school, who's to say that whoever's in there securing the premises isn't going to follow the state guidelines for a public school?
I think you're mixing up, there's two models that Friendly uses. One is the community model and one is the district model. And what we would be falling under is the district model. So we would be setting up a Friendly micro school inside of our public school at Croydon Village School. The other model that they have is the community model, which is more geared towards homeschooling families. So somebody could have or host a friend-a-thought in their home. And I believe what that's talking about is really to make sure the guide is safe, because they're going into somebody's home, right? So that applies to the community portion. We would fall under the district plan.
Okay, because this does not say, you know, community Prenda versus homeschool Prenda. But it also says that Prenda does not provide the physical space, liability concerns, and operating costs, and those are shifted to the parents. So who covers the liability?
It would shift to the parents under the community model. Under the district model, it would be on the district. So we would be responsible for the building, the insurance, and all of that.
So it seems like no one wants this anyway, so what other options are there? Or is this it? This is the only option you have?
So the other ones,
If we're gonna operate under an $800,000 budget, there are very limited options.
Supreme Court.
sorry?
Superior Court. A judge can help you.
That's if we're not gonna operate under an $800,000
Right.
budget. If we are going to operate under an $800,000 budget.
Legally.
None of these
You're gonna do
details.
that legally. Right.
Right.
We don't even know if that's entirely.
That's correct.
So I have a question. I know for years certain people in town have been trying to close the school. And I just don't understand why they never have. But it seems like you guys have gone with the budget and now putting whatever that thing is called, Prada, in there. You actually are trying to close our school as a school. Which before, a few years ago, I gotta admit, town got complacent that you guys were doing what was right. And then here you are again, smacking it down and trying to close the school. And I've heard many, many speeches from certain people. Won't use their names, but I think that it's really, really underhanded the way it went down. During the meeting, you did admit to knowing about this budget, and you never shared with anybody. So that to me just says, why? Why didn't you guys want to share it? Because you knew people would come out like they did last time and say no. So we had a bad snowy day, we had things going on in Newport, my kids never got signed up for sports because I was here in this meeting, never having my questions fully answered. And yet here we are again, looking at probably a big tax bill is going to slap us in the bottom. And that now, once this school is closed, we are the only continually operated one-room schoolhouse in the country. Other schools have closed and have reopened or have been used as a preschool. Or is that what we are trying to do here with certain people? No offense, Jody, but before I've heard you talk about charter school. Are you going to close down our public school and you're going to put a charter school in there? Because that's what it looks to me like you're going for. And the smirks you give out are really condescending.
So it wasn't a smirk. I would like to respond to the charter school thing, because this has been asked before, and I explained what my goal was for a charter school. I'll explain it. What I was aiming to do was, so half of our kids go to Newport Montessori for grades 5 through 8. But when they come out of there, their options are to go to a traditional school. So I wanted to open a charter school to allow the option for them to continue to go to an alternative kind of school. That was it.
By closing our school?
No, it was high school. It was not, it has nothing to do with grades K.
Start a charter school, nobody's gonna go to it, so.
I'm sorry, I just keep finding this going in circles, that every time, and it is our fault, no offense, guys, but if you came to that meeting, this wouldn't have been voted in. And this has happened once before in the last few years, when they got rid of our teacher. The only full-time teacher we had, because one teacher was doing principal, the other one was special ed. So you left us with 2 half-time teachers and their notable jobs. And that year was a nightmare. And you know it because you even said we made a mistake. But now what are you doing again? Making another mistake. My children are not your experiment.
Represent us as the chair.
You're talking about us meeting with the Department of Ed to gain information about this?
That's just one, I think Amanda had a list of other things.
That I did exactly.
I'm asking if we can get an answer from you.
I haven't decided yet.
Yeah, Nicole's had her hand up for a long time.
So, I've kind of been watching all of this from afar, and reading everything. And what I would like to see from a school board that says they are there for all of our kids, is to have done this petition yourself. You could have done this petition. You didn't have to make us hold the decision if you, petition, if you truly are there for every child in this town. You guys voted in school choice. I really wasn't for that at the time. It's worked. You just ripped all of that out from underneath these kids. These kids would have gone through 2 years of a pandemic that had had their life completely changed, and you didn't care. You just ripped it out from underneath them. I want you guys to start fighting for the kids, and everybody else here, but I want you guys to start, because you're not. None of you are. You're just giving us things that you haven't even researched. I don't know. Well, I think. Well, they're not real teachers. Come on.
Right, and the clock is ticking.
Start fighting for the kids with
to
this
run the
town.
clock down.
And you're asking for different voices, and she
Tom,
just
do you have
said the
something to
exact
say?
same thing that we have been
Sorry,
saying for the
there are
last
other people's
2
meetings
meetings.
for us. I've heard these things for the last 3 or 4, however many meetings we've had.
Jody Nicole had her hand.
So, thank you, sorry. There's several online comments, just tell me when you want them. Do you want me to start doing online?
I can't hear you.
She has online.
There are online comments?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want them now?
Sure.
Okay, one question is, this parent would like to know if the Prenda model was used as an option, would the children still get the option of Montessori? Will they grandfather the students who are already enrolled in their respective schools?
No.
No.
The Prenda would only be K through 4, so that wouldn't impact the availability of Montessori. And Montessori would fall under at least the budgets that we've been playing with. It would be satisfied, so that we were looking at covering 9,000.
Okay, and then the second part is, will this grandfather the students who are already enrolled in their respective schools?
No, I mean, we would have to find out what those tuition rates are going to be.
Well, I haven't done that.
What, you have more comments?
I do. Another person said, so the board just set up a budget that arbitrarily cuts everything by 53%. So if the vote at the special meeting fails, that will become the standing budget. What is their plan to change it after the special meeting with the DRA?
Beth, maybe you could answer this, because our understanding is that we have flexibility on the line items, and that we'd be able to
You have flexibility within the individual categories, and you can also do budget transfers. That is a legal operating practice for
Correct.
school
So
district budgets.
the line item details, I don't wanna say are irrelevant at this point, but they sort of are. We have to present an $800,000 budget to the state. And, you know, obviously, if we end up getting stuck with it after the special district meeting, then we'll have to make some hard decisions on how do we actually shift around the different buckets.
Or an emergency meeting, is that because they're not able to fund?
And the third question is, they haven't cut teacher salaries, have they?
Well, that was just a special meeting.
So no decisions were made in that special meeting, that was an informational meeting with Beth trying to get some ideas as far as how we can address some of these things. There were no decisions made, no teacher salaries haven't cut, nothing definitive has been done aside from
You gotta talk in the
establishing a budget of $800,000 that we can work with if the special meeting next month comes about and a vote is put in place for the full funding of the 1.7 or whatever else may come about. So the move to cut each line item by 54% leaves all options on the table still.
Right. And if you zero out a line item, our understanding is that you then can't add money to it later. So doing an even percentage across the board leaves all of the line items in play, so to speak.
Did you have more?
That's all I have so far, thank you.
Tom, what do you got?
So I think, I just wanted to make a comment that the two scariest words to me about the Prenda and the Kai model that really freak me out are the words for profit. Because that just is scary. Because to me, what I think is happening here is, you know, you're getting these really fancy labels. We got a learning coach that reports to a nice certified teacher and they're individualizing instruction. And I feel like it's putting lipstick and a dress on a pig and trying to take it to prom. But at the end of the day, it's still a friggin' pig, okay? And what we're really getting for our dollar here is they want to make profit. So what they're going to do is they're going to hire people for $15 an hour to throw worksheets at your children.
Right.
And then all they got to do is get on a Zoom with some certified teacher halfway across the country, and they're calling it all these fancy words, but that's what you're going to get for your money. Why? Because their bottom line is making money, not doing what's best for our children. And that's what's really freaking me out about this option. It sounds all wonderful with all these fancy jargon and everything, but at the end of the day, you're not getting certified people who are taking all the extra time. We have individualized learning at Croydon Village School, you said it yourself, and it's going amazing. Our test scores are climbing. The only thing that keeps happening is a small percentage of this town are throwing monkey wrenches in our progress as a town. And it's sad. The fact that this happened without a plan is astonishing to me. The fact that you guys brought this forward without having any sort of idea of how to implement it is shocking. Now, I don't have a huge investment. I love Little Red. I've lived in the area my whole life. I think it's great. But if you came with a sustainability committee and worked and presented to the town why we should get rid of it and gave us a chance to digest a plan and think about things, we would have your back, or we would have backed you. This is I can't even say it. Because it's too bad of a word. It's shocking. And then to hear that, you guys are having quorums. I mean, what is going on up here? I mean, this is just a disaster. But that being said, it's just, I really fear what you're pitching, because in all honesty, you don't know what you're pitching. And what you're pitching is a for-profit company.
Chris, you've been waiting longer than your husband.
the question of for-profit versus non-profit governmental, I have 2 words: SpaceX, NASA.
Oh, they're not in our town, you don't have to worry about that.
$35,000 from the state who's paying that out of taxpayers. So, taxes are coming from somewhere, aren't they?
Yeah.
I just want to know if the best interest of our children is what you're hoping for. What are you doing to get people to the special meeting that we've got scheduled now? And how are you making sure that folks are going to come out to support a budget that supports our kids?
Like the whole town, not just Croydon.
Yeah. Are you doing anything about it?
Well, right now, we've only tonight established when that meeting will be.
And we're gonna publish it as we have to.
You said that you don't want to.
What about the checklist? Will that be reviewed so those who are new to town can vote? Sorry, what? And what about the checklist? Will that be reviewed so those who are new to town can vote?
We have zero control over that.
We can make a petition, 10 people, we need 10 voters to do it, so we got you.
I'm on top of that.
We got you.
Thanks. I have a tongue in cheek for you, Tom. $15 an hour, I'll take that raise. And I've been working at school for 17 years.
Yes, she has.
We're talking back and forth on all the ponds, and maybe I'm just a little bit slower than most, but I heard you guys say that, that whatever you guys are calling it, is you're looking at it for 5th through 12th. You just said in your last little spiel that, oh no, it would be going on in the public school, K through 4. So which side of that coin is actually happening? Or are you looking for the whole 13 grades? Because I'm very confused at the contradiction you both are making.
The question earlier, where the answer was that it would be at the school, was specific to Brenda. So there's 2 different types of micro schools that we're talking about. One's called Brenda, one's called Chi. Brenda would be only for grades K through 4 and would happen inside of the village school. Chi covers grades, would cover grades 5 through 12. They offer grades 4 through 12, but in our particular case, it would be 5 through 12. So that's the reason for the difference there.
Okay, so you are still looking at closing down the school, because doing that kind of podcast, first off, I've raised my kids, and I've unfortunately raised my grandkids now. I've never known a kindergartner or a first grader that's going to be able to go in and do that computer stuff and not have a one-on-one redirection. Also, you aren't just setting these kids up for social failure, because they're not learning to work with anybody. The best thing about this school is the community. That these kindergartners come in, and a 4th grader will turn around and show them something.
Right.
That we've had kindergartners, 4th graders reading with kindergartners. We've had other children helping other children out. They learn a sense of community. They learn a sense of caring. When I was subbing at the high school, the best thing was the Croydon students. You'd see a kid going down, whatever's doing, drops his books. You know who stopped every time and helped pick up those books? A Croydon student. That has to do with our school. It has to do with most of the parents here. But I don't think it reflects you guys right now. Because all you're saying is, put my kid in a bubble, let him do this. If I wanted my kid online, I would buy him a laptop. I don't want my kids online. I want them in school. I want them hands-on learning. I want them to learn to work with people. And I'm sorry, we got some of the best teachers again. And all I see is every time we have a good group, you guys cut their throats. Well, she was there forever with our kids. Best community, one of the best teachers with them. These teachers that are one-on-one and not on a goddamn little screen sees that your child is having trouble multiplying. Do they continue to teach the same way? They come back with another way to reach that child. And if that isn't working, I've seen them stop, get the other kids going, and pull their kid over and teach them another way to learn that multiplication. I see it every day.
And you are cutting these kids off. It's a shame, and it may not be illegal, but it is immoral. And I think that closing our school is immoral. And you guys already got half of what you wanted out of our town. You got rid of our police officer, didn't hire one. Now your other thing that you started in the beginning, closing the school, you're pushing on it again. And I'm sorry if I seem a little aggravated. I get tired when I ask a question like at the school meeting. I was dished. I had people tell me I had to be quiet while they're sitting here mumbling about me. And I've had to listen to everything for years. I don't go online, I don't do Facebook, because it's so aggravating and figure pointing. The only thing I've ever run on Facebook is something someone printed out to me. And it was how the goal to some of our residents in town are to close the school, get rid of the police department, and if they can, the fire department, because you might as well ship that out too. And it's happening. Police department's gone. And now you're working at the school. I'm sorry, honey, I really hope Jason.
No, it's independently well, but we can't touch it.
Yeah, thank you, Pat Sawyer.
I just want to clear up a little confusion on the online thing. So with respect to the Prenda Micro School in grades K through 4, kindergartners specifically, kindergartners would be on a computer for no more than 30 minutes for the entire day. The rest of the entire day, which I think runs whatever it is, 8 to 2 or 8 to 3, is all interaction with other children and with other human beings in the room. So it's actually a very small piece.
Okay, so I have another question. They have a half hour of screen time, and they're going to be supervised. So right now, I see our kindergarten and first grade teacher. Every single thing she does, including play, has a learning element. So you're going to tell me you're going to hire a babysitter, go in there, watch them do stuff, monitor, and they're going to say, oh, you go play with blocks. I don't need my kids to play. I don't need my grandkids to play. I want to give them colored crayons and blocks. I will. I don't see how you're doing that. Having someone babysit your kids. That's all a monitor is, because I'm going to tell you, I looked up, that stuff pops up on my phone constantly. Be a coach. We will certify you. Do you want this kind of money? Do you want to work out of your own town? Do you want to work out of your own house? I delete all of it. And I really am ashamed of you that our kids are going to go through it. And I don't want to pay a babysitter to watch those kids. Any parent here can give their kid a screen, that ABC mouse, and say, here you go. Have a half hour, and then the rest of the day is up to you to do whatever you want. You can't tell me a coach, and next year there's going to be quite a big class over there. You're going to tell me that a coach is going to take care of 13 kids, give them all individual after their half hour. Maybe they can stop fights. Maybe they can have read time. But I can't see them learning on every single thing that they do, which is what these teachers do. They do projects over to support what they're teaching. I've got to tell you, I am old. I've been at the school for 17 years and I've subbed for 15 before that. Here, Newport, Grantham, Sunapee, and I see so much caring. Our teachers above board, and I'm going to say except for 1 year. 1 year was kind of awful. But these teachers do so much for these kids that you don't even know. They work their tail off. In the beginning of the year, our principal lead teacher, I live next door. I'm coming home at 7:30 at night, and she's still in school working. Is she charging you for that? No. She takes her own little pitiful salary, goes about her job what's best for the kids. Unfortunately, I don't see you guys emulating that. I would like my kids to emulate the adults in these guys' fields. I don't think my kids will ever grow up and be teachers. I don't. But I like the fact that they've been taught by a teacher that cared about them. Over and over and over again. And the only reason I'm over there still is because I'm still learning. I'm still learning kindness. I'm still learning how to address things in a different way. I just just all of a sudden start doing something mechanically, I might get a tap on my shoulder and say, do it this way. Thank you. But I really just can't stand what you're doing. Please go away.
Have you seen in any other states where this kind of works? And how does it work for these kids when they're done K through 12, going on to colleges? Colleges always want to look at their GPA average and stuff like that. How does this work? Does that work?
So what I want to do is have an educational session with the Prenda people and with the Kai people, so you can actually ask them all these questions.
So you don't have the answers to this, but yeah, we're already looking into this. Wouldn't it be the way around? Let's go public and then a year.
So Jason, we have talked with them, and we have learned a lot about it. We don't have all the answers now. And you know, they need to hear your questions, and you need to hear from them how it actually operates, in my opinion.
I just wanted to go back to what I was asking, or we were talking about earlier, and Kevin, you were good about talking about this, about the lawyer, and they're still out trying to find things themselves. Because this is new for all of us. Obviously, I'm sure you let them know this is time is of the essence. And we now have a date where we're gonna bring forward our plans and whatever. Have they given you some kind of a date where, yes, we're looking all this up, we're gonna have some definite, for sure, legal answers? Because it just makes me worried that with you're digging things up, we're digging things up, that we really need a clear legal path. So that what we do, we don't want to find out later that what we're doing is wrong.
Agreed, yeah.
Sure. So right now, we're kind of in a limbo, because we have to wait for this petition to play out. So it's not like we can start signing contracts with Prenda and Kai, so we can nefariously lock in some contract before the next meeting goes, and so we can try to, circumvent the efforts of the town.
And I absolutely understand that. I'm
So-
just saying, I know
so-
the plan, that questions will come up of, is this legal or is this legal? And we'll need the information to give to the people as we're talking about. My phone is ringing. You know what I mean?
I think I lost it. I'm not really sure.
My point is,
where you're headed.
I'm afraid to put the cart before the horse. I do have some just legal concerns about not offering a public option or different things like that. And I hate that to not be presented to people what the actual law is before they're voting.
Oh, yeah.
Am I making any sense?
I think I get it. Yes, because those questions do need to be answered before we say, like, let's just assume, the vote next month fails and we are stuck with 800 and then Prenda and Kai seem to be the only thing that we can find that
Would petition the court.
would operate under $800,000.
Great, so if you give them a time frame and said we need these answers. by
Now it's on before our special meeting, because if people come to vote and they say, oh, I'm gonna vote for the $800,000 budget, not realizing that the only options that we have are the online platforms and they're not legal, they're gonna vote for the wrong thing and cost themselves even more money.
And us more. Exactly.
Yeah, and so we need to know that before the special meeting. We have to have that information to inform the voters so they can make a good choice for our town.
Right.
So that's why she's asking for a date. Can we ask the lawyer for a date?
Yeah, I don't see
Like,
any reason why.
can we have it next week? I don't know.
If my phone wasn't at 2% right now, I'd shoot an email right now and say, can we get it by next Monday?
Can I ask a contract question?
Can we just have a few more comments and then wind this up?
I'd like to make one more, and it's not to any of you guys, because I don't feel like any of you heard anything anybody said here tonight. I would like to speak to the rest of the people. It's on us now. We have to get on the phone. We have to get our neighbors out. We have to get everybody out to vote. There is plenty of room where we're gonna have it. Get the whole town there and vote and take back our school. That's what we have to do.
Take back
This is
our
All right, so,
something me and my wife were discussing the other day with the viability of this whole kind of.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure the budget doesn't.
It's like, we would have to put in, like 4 Starlink satellites into the budget to make sure that would actually be a.
And how much of that is going to take our money?
Yeah, I mean, this question has come up at a previous meeting as well, and, the micro schools would need to be somewhere where there was a good internet connection. But it's not, again, it's not going to be everybody's houses, it would be, say, K through 4 all in the school, or it'd be maybe 1 or 2 or 3 locations that we know have internet, and if they don't, we supply internet. But it's not like everybody's gotta go find an internet connection for themselves.
If you call, do you want to speak?
Online.
Online.
Do you want online questions?
Sure.
If the original budget passes in the special meeting, do you guys intend to go with the original budget?
Oh, right, good question, good question. So if it passes in the special vote.
Oh, the 1.7.
The 1.7.
Oh, you mean if it gets funded, will we continue operating under the proposed budget with the line items? as
The one they
presented?
presented at the last.
I see what
The 1.7 million is what you're talking about, right? Let's just be clear. Right.
I say if the 1.7 is funded, there's no reason not to go with the budget as it was presented. I don't see the wrong one.
Yes, you're still following.
that as well.
What? You wanna know what those?
Wait, I wanna know their feelings of what your want, of grade.
I mean, if that's the budget, then that's what we go with. I believe that's the case, yeah. Angie?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have a lot of people in town coming up and saying that's what they want, so yes. That being said, I think, there's no reason not to maybe introduce some of these other options. Maybe nobody takes them. Not talking Prenda, I'm talking like the Kai stuff, maybe get the Montessori program available. No reason to not make some additional choices available to people. Because honestly, I didn't even know about these before all this came up. But as far as the 1.7, yeah, I think we'll just go back to what it was before.
Can I ask a contract question? You said that, you'd have to get on a contract with this Cayenne, whatever those are. Did you already fill out contracts and reach out like to, are we obligated by other contracts for Newport, the Tech, Montessori, Sunapee?
Yeah,
Because
there's
all these things are normally done before
But if
now.
they're not funded, they're not valid.
That's right.
And right now, they're not funded.
So legally, you don't have to follow them, even though you signed a contract.
That's correct.
Yes, that's essentially correct. We don't have, so part of
So
part
you
of
guys would like that too, right? So if your boss decided to cut down something and you have a contract with him that you're paid this much money to the end of the year, he says, well, you know what, I'm not gonna fund your department anymore. See ya.
Well,
That's what you're doing to our teachers and our kids?
municipalities can't commit to spending money before it's been appropriated from the public. So if there was a contract that stated in 2 years from now you have to pay this, then, and that funding doesn't happen, then you can't pay it. And the
We're not gonna get
contract-
sued again, are we?
I mean, the RSA's are very clear on this, because we've looked at
Well,
it.
supposedly I heard that before too, and then we
Now,
cut
you can
down.
contract rates, so you could say the rate for Newport would be X.
Mhm.
But what you can't do is say that in next year's budget, which hasn't been approved yet, we will pay X.
Okay, I get that
Right.
part, but my question still goes back to my tax question when I was here at the meeting. That we got hit with a real big tax bill because no one put money into special ed, and then we had to all just open up our wallets and pour it out because no one could foresee that. So what I'm asking now is just because it's not funded now, can people come back and sue us later for stuff that isn't done, that we did not fund because, no offense, but the ignorance of cutting us 54%. Because I'd like to see you live on your food bill or your mortgage bill when your pay is cut 54%. And it's okay, you don't have to hire me back next year. I'm fine with that. But I am not fine with the way you're treating our kids. And I will never stop.
I'm gonna take one more comment.
Actually, she has a lot of online questions that have not been fully answered yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do have several, but I know that you
I
have.
had a follow-up to the first one that was asked. So if we get the 1.7 reinstated, are you going to reinstate the budget as it was presented? So are we going to have school choice, or are you still going to push all this other garbage?
I think we just answered that question.
Yeah, okay, we go back to the. I just wanted to clarify, so maybe Brenda or I will be in addition to.
Right.
Start looking at it at
We could start looking at those as an option for people that actually want to look at it.
Exactly.
Not for cramming it down to the throat.
Yes. Do they have a tab or the tablets or
So you're not.
So-
We do need to wind up. Are there any, like, new topics or questions or comments in there?
Well, it doesn't matter, they should all be answered because they've been waiting for a very long time, Jody. So please, Nicole, present it. Thank you.
I second that. We had to wait for you guys. I think you can wait for that.
How many do you have?
I don't.
A lot?
A couple.
Go ahead and give it.
Certainly.
Where is it?
I'm obviously gonna not read every single comment, but, I got you now. So somebody asked, so there will only be full tuition funding for Newport Montessori, but not for the Newport School District. Is that legal to not fully fund the anchor district, but fund a handful of private school students? And thinking about, if you're doing tuition for $87,000 and somebody else, $8,700, and 45 for another, is that, equitable?
What was the last word?
Equitable?
Equitable. What do you mean by-
Two questions in there.
Right.
One is illegal.
Right, and
Yes.
and it's legal, go on.
And, okay.
So what, I don't understand the 8,745.
So they're saying if, is it legal to not fully fund the anchor district, but fund a handful of private school students? So they had heard earlier the amount that Montessori could be compensated or paid tuition for. And they're wondering about, is it equitable?
Equal. Jody wasn't sure what it meant by that, so I think they're saying, is it equal, right? Is it gonna?
Are you treating them
Okay,
equally?
Is every student getting the same education for the same, for the money that they're paying? Is there not?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's up to every student to decide. I mean, if they decide to go to a school that's half the cost, I'm not directing this at you, I'm just directing this at the question. If what you're saying as clarification is what they meant, then every student is already getting a different education for the amount that they spend. And
Right, and
whether
their
it's
choice.
That's what I don't
equitable,
understand the question.
I think it's,
I don't know.
I think it's their choice. 9 to 12, and that less than $9,000 school is no longer available. So they're asking if my child is at a Newport school, is it equitable to say they can have this X amount for Newport Montessori?
Or would they get as good an education in a different option? Is that the question?
No, is it fair that you're only paying tuition to a private school? You're no longer
Is
funding.
it fair or is it legal?
I'd say either way.
It's legal, it is legal.
If those schools are full though, kids who are now attending
We
a
understand
public
that.
school.
Yeah, I understand the whole part.
I think Frank knows what you're trying to say.
So the question is that what does it mean to provide equal dollars to kids versus what is equitable? And there's wonderful little cartoons and things that really talk about those differences on the web, which are worth taking a look at. But essentially, equitable is not defined by money. So equity is not defined by the dollars spent. it's defined by the equal opportunity or the equal, well, opportunity is the best word, but it goes beyond that. Yeah,
So you're talking about.
so you may have two schools, you have school choice, child A goes over here, costs 9,000, child B goes over here, costs 12,000. Equity is that both kids get to go to their school and their children or their parents do not have to pay any money. Equal is they each get 9,000, and this family has to make up the other 3.
The difference, right?
That's the difference between equal and equitable. Yeah.
So now to answer the question, I guess.
Is the school responsible for which value?
Well, the school's responsible to provide a free public education in public or private institutions at no expense to their children, to parents. And that happens if you have your own school. If you do not have a school, then you can designate a school, which we have as Newport, in which there is a contract and an agreement that allows every student to have a equitable education through that school. And that's kind of how the state defines it within the adequacy and all that stuff.
Thank you.
Nicole, is there other?
I think the group in general is happy with questions I've asked.
I'm not sure that's the right word, but okay. So our next regular meeting date is Tuesday, April 19th. We probably need to meet before that, though. We'll figure something out.
Could you repeat that? April 19th?
Tuesday, April 19th.
Tuesday, 3 weeks from today.
Well,
and, yeah, but then we have the budget hearing on the 8th as well, so.
Oh, right, April 8th, next week.
Right, so a week from Friday.
Good point. Budget meeting.
So are you suggesting that we put another meeting on between now and the 19th for a regular meeting?
I mean, we have to talk about sending a mailer to the town, what should go on it, so on like that. We have time to talk about that. Whether we want to bring in the micro school people and when and so on. So yeah, things like that. Yeah.
And select board meets on next Tuesday, right? 5th or the 12th? Should we meet on Tuesday next week?
Sure. Sure, Tuesday, April 5th. Yes, okay.
Does that work Tuesday, everybody?
Does that work for you?
A week from tonight?
Is that open to the public?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. I like it. All right.
I don't know if you want to know, but none.
Sorry?
We can't be here.
Oh,
Can you be here?
Oh, Craig can't be there, so maybe we choose a different date.
Monday?
I can't, I'm away that week.
Oh, I see.
I'm available. You go.
For some reason, I thought Tuesdays were.
You got that?
Yeah, sorry, Tuesday for both of you?
That's me. I can't.
Just Beth, you can't.
No.
All right, but.
That's fine.
6:30 then, and I guess we're gonna do it here.
April 5th?
April 5th.
Is that just a regular, I mean, what are you gonna, a working meeting?
These are all supposed to be working meetings. Yeah, I mean, it's to figure out, teaching people about micro schools, getting them together. Okay, yeah.
Well, the Newport letter.
The Newport letter.
We
Well,
really should get that out before.
we can, you can send a draft to
can't do business.
There was something in 91A that says that you can send drafts of things that were previously decided that you can work on.
One of you call Nathan and find out. Okay?
Okay.
Stay out of trouble, if
Okay.
you possibly can.
I mean, that was one of the things in 91A. I read it today.
So you let me know that that meeting was
So next
Sorry?
week.
You'd be okay if you
The
had a
meeting
larger
that they
board.
had with the department of ed, and they were working.
Then two of you could work on